Time Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz got Strzok to admit that Robert Mueller never even asked him about those text messages or his possible bias. Watch.
Did Robert Mueller ever ask you if you were biased against Donald Trump?
He did not.
Was it clear to you that Mr. Mueller was aware of these incendiary text messages?
Yes.
So he knew of the text messages, but never asked you whether you were biased or not?
That's correct.
That seems weird. Man, I wish Matt Gaetz were here so I could ask him all about this. Oh, wait, he is. Joining me now, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, fresh from the carnage. Welcome back to the show, Congressman.
Good to be back with you, Kennedy. And isn't it weird that Robert Mueller seemed to have a total lack of curiosity regarding the manner in which Peter Strzok's clear bias could have infected his investigative decisions? I was just baffled by that answer.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that that Mueller never pointedly asked him that, considering Mueller's background heading the FBI and knowing exactly what the regulations and protocol is within the Bureau. That's very shocking to me. Peter Strzok is right about one thing. Everyone has political opinions. Everyone on the Mueller investigation team has political opinions. The question is, how do those opinions color your actions? And more importantly, how can your actions affect the outcome of something so important as a contentious presidential race?
The Inspector General's report really informs on where the rubber meets the road in that dynamic between bias and the manifestation of bias in investigative decisions. In Chapter 12 of the Inspector General's report, he indicates that the decision Peter Strzok made to de-emphasize the Hillary Clinton email investigation and instead rapidly accelerate his effort in the Trump-Russia investigation is not a decision that the Inspector General could say was clear of bias. And so it proves that really that there are two rotten bookends on the Russia investigation. Initially with Bruce Orr being the individual supplying the dossier. That was some testimony Jim Jordan extracted today. And then at the end, when Mueller had to let Strzok go, a lot of lawyers, they don't ask questions that they don't want to know the answer to. And that's my worry with Bob Mueller. Maybe he didn't want to ask Strzok whether or not his bias infected the investigation, because had Strzok said yes, Mueller would have had to stop in his place and disband his effort. And here it seems as though he saw the bias and he did not want to ask Peter Strzok how it could have infected the investigative findings.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because Mueller would have certainly had to have bifurcated his investigation if there was, in fact, institutional bias within the Hillary Clinton email server investigation. You know, Strzok says that he has sincere regret, but it almost seems like Hillary regret. You know, they say the words regret, and they talk about contrition. And they talk briefly, they gloss over their shortcomings, but then go into a series of rationalizations. And it was really interesting to me, because if you were the subject of a department investigation by an inspector general, and your name appeared throughout a 600-page document, it seemed as though Strzok only abstracted one line from that document that said that political bias didn't affect prosecutorial conduct. However, there were very specific passages that some of your colleagues read that spoke to Strzok's bias and his shortcomings and his lack of ethics. So it almost seemed like he didn't read that at all. What was the most surprising thing to come from this joint hearing?
The most surprising thing is that Peter Strzok lacked the ability to admit bias. His bias is clear to everyone. When he's saying F Trump, when he's saying Trump is an idiot, when they're talking about Trump as a loathsome human being, that's clear bias. It was very surprising to me that he didn't just dispense with that and say, look, I didn't like Trump, I had bias against him, but my bias didn't affect the work that I did. Instead, he acted as though he didn't harbor any bias, which is an absurd proposition. Kennedy, this is one of the reasons why more than half the country now, according to the last CBS poll, really does not approve of this investigation in its current form, because the very people who started it so clearly had an axe to grind with the president.
Well, it's really interesting that he is the character who really has not seen any accountability at the FBI. Yes, he's in human resources now. He was essentially reassigned to a lesser job within the Bureau, but he still has a job, whereas James Comey and Andrew McCabe and others have been relieved of theirs. And it's very interesting that someone in his position he was the one who orchestrated and set off this conflagration, rather, within that joint committee hearing. So what happens now? I mean, is there any accountability now that we've seen him? And I don't think he made the best case for himself. He did not come off like an Oliver North. And I remember those Ollie North hearings. I stayed home from school. Sorry.
Yeah. I hear you. I think he did not demonstrate to the American people that he was being truthful. There is an investigation within the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility regarding Peter Strzok. He's already lost his security clearance, which is a good thing. And I believe ultimately he will be fired from the FBI, or he will leave just like his girlfriend Lisa Page did when people started looking into her conduct. I expect Lisa Page will be brought in next.
Yeah.
I think it's a good sign that we're going to be releasing transcripts. And I think from here on out, Kennedy, why would we do these behind closed doors? We need to have all these hearings open and in the public.
You have them behind closed doors because everyone has to grandstand and everyone has to be the bearded lady at the circus. It turns into a freak show, which is unfortunate because we want to see real questions asked and answered. We want to get to the truth. We want to find out how a compromised human rose through the ranks and allowed his bias to affect multiple investigations. And, you know, we kind of got there, but that was a long road.
A lot more work to do, I would agree.
All right. Congressman Matt Gaetz, thanks so much.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Louisiana.